Welcome to the first ever episode of Bulldog Buddies. On this podcast, we'll talk about Stonebridge students and staff's interesting pets and their stories to show the bulldog and their buddies' impact on each other. Today on this episode, I'll tell you about my dog Maui and her amazing story to get us started. Whether kitty or canine, let's get ready to talk about our buddies. So my dog's name is Maui. She is a Chihuahua Papillon and has brownish red fur, or brownish orange. It's gotten darker, but it's a pretty bright orange, and some white on like her mane and a little white spot on her forehead. She almost looks like a little baby fox is how I describe her. And we got her when she was already an adult, probably about like 5. And now I'd say she's about like 10 or 11. So she's definitely a way older dog now. I kind of describe her, to get to know her, she's kind of almost like a cat. She loves like laying out. She's kind of the princess. She used to lay like on the top of the couch cushions. So not like where you sit, but up where above your head would be. It's where she used to lay. She's definitely very like motherly. Like with our other dogs we have, she loves like taking care of them and kind of being the leader. And so we got her around 2017, 18, and we had already had another dog. That dog had a lot of anxiety and freakouts, and we just felt like he needed a companion. And Maui was actually at my grandma's at this point because my aunt is a dog groomer, and Maui was one of her little clients, and she always had to like muzzle her. Maui'd freak out, and she eventually learned and realized that Maui's owner at that time had been abusing her. Things that would happen to Maui was she would get her tail, just her little fluffy tail. She's a tiny dog. She would just get yanked and like dragged by her tail. She would be left out on a lead no matter what the weather, just for hours all day. She would be forced to try to mate with other dogs. And she wasn't taken care of. She wasn't loved and allowed dogs yet. So she gave her to my aunt, and that's when my aunt kind of realized, and she was like, okay, this dog cannot go back to her. She realized what Maui was going through, how she was being treated. And so then she was given to my grandma to take care of because my aunt already had too many pets. She couldn't do it. And so she was given to my grandma. And Maui's PTSD and trauma it's definitely gotten a lot better. But when we first met her, it was so bad to the point where if you pet her for more than like 3 seconds, she would freak out. And she wasn't like attacking, but she would like, it's almost like her whole mindset changed, and she would just be like kind of like trying to nip on you and barking at you and like this high pitched. But then immediately after, she would feel bad and she'd go up and she'd lick you and she would feel really horrible, but you couldn't even pet her past you could barely pet her for a long time. And if you did pet her for a second, if you went past like her neck, she would freak out. She was so scared. It was really sad seeing that from such a little like sweet dog. And she met our other dog, and I fell in love with her. My family fell in love with her. She was just the sweetest thing. Just this little puppy who was going through so much, and we didn't want her to keep struggling and not have a permanent home. So we ended up kind of like adopting her, or my grandma just kind of gave her to us. And she definitely became my dog. She slept with me every night. She follows me around the house. Me and her just really connected. She just really became close with me. And so she definitely, I could say she's one of my best friends, if not my best friend. She is the sweetest thing. And she's still not obviously very touchy, and like she's not really a cuddle dog. But she will. It's really sweet. If I'm just kind of having a long day, or if I just go lay in bed, she'll come up and she will just lay up next to me, or she'll just sit in my room until I'm ready to go out. And then when we go out, I'll leave my room. She just comes with me. So we just really connected. We've also, me and her have some interesting stories. One I will talk about is when we were camping in West Virginia. She is very terrified of storms and thunder and lightning, and that's what was happening this evening. And I was just sitting in the camper, eating and like watching some TV, and I was gonna go meet my parents and their friends that were a little further down at the campsite. And she's obviously freaking out. I'm trying to calm her down and just sit with her, but when she's kind of in that mode, she's in that mode. And now me trying to get out of the door was very difficult. The steps kind of go down, so there's almost like a gap for her to get through. And that is exactly what happened. She's so tiny, she slipped through, and she immediately bolted. And she was headed right down this very steep trail that we'd been down earlier that day. And it led to, it's kind of like a little bay, almost little mini beach area. But the scary thing was, on either side of those was just straight forest and woods. And there were also cliffs and like drop-offs that were obviously scary to think about her running straight towards frantically. And I look and I don't know whether to go get my parents or just go for Maui. And thankfully I made the right choice that day and I just went for Maui. And it was so hard to keep up with her. I was in my flip-flops. I was crying the whole time because this was still, we hadn't had her for too long, maybe like 2 years. So I was terrified. I didn't kind of know what she would do. I didn't know what to expect. Like, I'd never really seen her in this situation. And so I just went for it. I was going straight down the mountain. It was muddy, rocky. I was in my flip-flops crying, just trying to keep my eyes on her. Whole time scared some animal's going to jump out and get her, or scared she's going to run off the cliff. She eventually gets to that cliff, and she gets so close to the edge, but stops. And I think that kind of frightened her too. So I went and held her and grabbed her. And I was sitting there in the mud with her, just holding her because I didn't know what to do. Because now I'm scared to walk her all the way back up if she bolts again or jumps out. Like, I don't know what to do. Luckily, some guy who was also at the campsite had kind of seen and told my parents and went and told them what happened. So shortly after, I hear them calling for me, coming on the way down. And they were able to help me bring Maui up. And then the rest of that night, I, of course, showered, got warm. Maui had to take a little rinse off. And then that night, me and Maui just laid together. And I was very shook up. And she definitely was too. And we kind of just laid together. And I think about that story all the time with Maui. Because it really kind of just showed me how much I loved her and how much she had already impacted me and how much I already needed her. And after that day, she has been my baby, and she knows it. She knows that I can't get mad at her. But that was a really scary story, but it definitely, I think, brought us closer together. And Maui has just impacted me so much. Coming from her story made me also look into and learn more about all the animal abuse cases going on and what we can do to help those cases and how to work. I think one of the biggest things was learning how to work with a dog who's been through that and learning how to be patient and how to wait and how to earn their trust. And also how, when things happen, how to react. Because the big thing is not scolding her when she freaks out, not ignoring her, not being mad at her. It was definitely a lot of patience, trial and error, and just not giving up. And that really paid off because now I have the best little dog and the best little friend I could ask for. And that's Maui's story, and that's my buddy. So thanks for listening, everybody. Hopefully this encourages you to go spend some more time with your own Bulldog Buddy. And I will see you next time on Bulldog Buddies.